Starter Pokémon have been an iconic part of the franchise for decades at this point. Choosing one at the start of the game is something you do within the first 5 minutes or so in every title. Some would say this is an important tradition that shouldn't be changed, while others think it's getting a little stale after almost 10 generations. But what would it look like, and how would the games feel if this core mechanic were to be refreshed or removed entirely? Welcome to Ironically Bundled. Let's dive into this discussion. First of all, this isn't the first time someone from the Pokémon world doesn't get to have a traditional starter gifted to them. Far from it. Many NPCs and characters don't have the same privilege as the main character, us. They don't get to have a rare 3-stage beast and end up with a Rattata, or often don't even get a Pokémon at all. Game Freak and other studios gave us many examples of how a Pokémon game without a real starter could work. Think of Wally from Hoenn. Imagine him being the main character for a second. He isn't offered one of 3 pocket monsters. Rather, a gym leader lends him an early route Pokémon, and he has to catch his starter himself from the tall grass. In Colosseum, the protagonist instead has 2 evolutions as starters, although they're already high level when the game starts, and it's not exactly the start of the protagonist's journey. In Alola, it seems that Kahunas are the ones choosing the starters to give their pupils. Nanu gives out Alola Meowth, for example. Across time and space in the Ultra Megalopolis, it is said Poipole is a popular starter among people there. Man, imagine a Pokémon Legends Necrozma where you're part of the Ultra Recon Squad and get to travel to different universes, as teased in Sun and Moon. Please make it happen, Game Freak. But anyway, of course we can't forget Game Freak's favorite child, Kanto. Besides the 3 normal starters you get to choose between Pikachu and Eevee, even Ash in the first anime episode runs late and gets stuck with Pikachu, since the other starters were already picked by other people. However, Kanto's alternative starters aren't portrayed as simple random early route Pokémon. They often have boosted stats and abilities, but don't get to evolve. Let's take a look at spin-offs. In Pokémon Ranger, you're also offered unconventional starters, like Plusle and Minun, or one from the Pachirisu, Starly, Munchlax trio. Other Rangers, however, are shown to have different partner Pokémon. In Mystery Dungeon, of course, you don't have a starter. You are the starter. But there's an interesting mechanic, which is the personality quiz at the start of the game. Depending on how you react to certain questions, you get to become a different species of Pokémon. I think this is an underrated solution which could be used in mainline games to choose your best suited partner. Another example could be Family Pokémon, Pokémon given to you or used in the family. I mean, if you were an average person in the Pokémon world, in which other ways would you realistically get your first partner Pokémon? You'd most likely do as Wally did and get out there in the tall grass and get a basic weak one. But how would this play out in an actual game? Even if realer, it would feel boring. If you were in Game Freak's shoes, how would you go about it? Maybe let the player decide where to start their journey in the region and scale the rest of the game accordingly. For example, imagine you're in Sinnoh and start from the northern snowy areas. Or maybe you'd rather start from the beach and get a water type. Still, having a basic Pokémon as starter may be underwhelming, so let's apply some of the examples we talked about to a hypothetical future region and make a new formula. Formula 1. Imagine an Eevee-like Pokémon, or even Eevee itself, a Pokémon that turns into multiple different species. It's given to you by your family or someone important. You can craft a cool story around it, but that's it. That's the only starter in this region. It has boosted stats, similar to Let's Go Eevee's starter, but unlike Kanto, you can evolve it into whatever type and species you prefer. It would be cool to try this for one title. It's still technically a starter, but there's a new fresh spin on it. Formula 2. Everyone liked PLA's mechanics of dodging, hiding, catching, baiting, and battling Pokémon. So this hypothetical region, similar to Hisui, is wilder or simply has a different culture, where it's normal to physically challenge wild Pokémon, and as a rite of passage, you must go in the wilderness, choose a suitable Pokémon, and fight it 1v1, yourself against the Pokémon, like a classic video game boss, until you catch it. This will be your starter or partner Pokémon. Give it slightly boosted stats depending on the Pokémon, and yeah. Formula 3. This region is futuristic and developed opposite of the previous formula. You're in a lab. There are more than 3 starters and must take a personality exam or test. Just copy-paste Mystery Dungeon's personality quiz, and thanks to technology, the best-suited Pokémon for you will be chosen. Not far from dating apps lol. Without traditional starters, Pokémon titles would feel a lot different. They may become less iconic, or more iconic if done right. The beloved decades-old formula is not going anywhere anytime soon, but it's fun to speculate and imagine a different world. Changing the script would be risky, but it wouldn't hurt to try, and after all, even Game Freak themselves have recently started to experiment with new things. So, what do you think? Do you want the games to keep having the historic starter formula, or do you want the developers to try something new and creative? There's definitely a lot of potential. If you have any other ideas or considerations you want to share, please participate in the discussion in the comments. If you enjoyed this thought experiment, leave a like and subscribe. And that's all for me. See ya.